The films we made at a certain period, the 80s, 90s, wouldn't be this way if it wasn't for the space in which they were made. And our space is a neon space, it's a light space, it's a space of energy that is electric, it's the way people move, it's the energy of Hong Kong, it's the excitement of the encounters on the street. And it's lit by neon, basically, especially at that time. Now it's moving on to other forms of lighting, but yeah, it's a neon world, and it's a garish, exuberant, possibly empty world, you know, if you're not careful. I think that's what neon represents. "20, 30 years, when I came in as a person who was starting to become interested in visual experience. You know, driving down Nathan Road at night and again, not speaking Chinese at that time. What's the word? It's almost the arrogance of me thinking I belong here. It was almost like these signs are telling me, hey Guilo, you know, get it together. You've got a lot to learn. I think that was very important. I think it was actually not being able to read the signs, which were always neon, the ones that you could read at night. It was a reminder of get it together, this is who we are, come to our world, embrace it in the way we do. And I think the light here, I mean, I've never seen an unpolluted sky in my life. In my films, when I shoot a sky, it's never black. Why would it be black? There's always light pollution. there's always ambience. It might be fog, it might be clouds. You know, so to me, the light of a city is city light reflected, which means neon light reflected off the clouds, which give a color to the sky. We've made films that had a certain budget, and it was actually often stealing the neon light. It was often using the ambient light, which is very soft and non-directional, and has a certain quality and a certain beauty, especially if a woman walks through it, or if someone is silhouetted in neon light, is extremely beautiful. We've made many films that start from the 60s, moving through different periods of if we're talking about Hong Kong films, and moving through different periods of Hong Kong experience, and neon has always been here. Neon is like a woman's lipstick. You put it on at night, you go out in a certain space, a certain ambience, you glow. In the concept of 2046, that is that all this stuff, which is a clutter of images, of spaces, and of course of neons. So I think that is probably the most eclectic and the most definitive example of how structural elements, architectural elements, nostalgic elements, elements of culture, which neon contains all of, because it's usually and very often related to words, or certainly related to patterns which represent a certain period of the artistic experience of that time, and the most layered response to what this particular kind of light form has represented and has become, and represents to us in the past and in our future. The red is extremely vibrant in neon. And for us, that's something, again, that because red is such a ceremonial, such a symbolic color in Chinese culture, is you're really careful, you know, how you use the red. Otherwise, it becomes like a tourist brochure. It becomes like because then it loses its dynamism. I think neon uses that to advantage, because it is saying I'm brash and I want to say something and I'm here. And so the colors are very, I think, much more specific than they are in other forms of lighting. So to use any form of neon in filmmaking is, I think, you're trusting light and color and more than you do in other forms of lighting. You have to, because it's going to take you somewhere that you can't retrieve. Neon, it's what it is. It's going to do what it does, so you either have to embrace it or you have to reject it. You have to have it close to the lens, informing the ambience, creating an atmosphere, because it is like fog. The color, the way in which it lights a space is like fog, over a city. It just sort of engulfs everything. Or you keep it in the distance, because then it has a sort of informative or whatever, a didactic or narrative kind of function. And that's it. Those are the two choices. In the narrative form, because you've chosen to. But when you take it into the space of the actual filmmaking area, when you use it as a lighting source, you're basically dependent on the source itself. So you have to love it, you have to trust it, and you have to let it take you where you're going. You can't tell it what to do. Neon is colder than tungsten light. It doesn't generate as much heat, and it has beautiful forms. It's not as warm as tungsten light. It usually goes even the warm tones have an eclectic nature to them, and the cold tones the cooler tones are very piercing. It's kind of like the difference between a whore and a wife. Then you can't even touch it. If you touch the glass, perhaps it would break. You can't come too close to it. I think maybe neon is all that men aspire to. Well, some of us. It'll come back, don't worry. I think that's the great thing. It's like film. It's like, it's like Polaroid cameras. It's like probably it'll evolve into something new. It'll probably take different forms, but I think the elegance what to me, because we went to the factory and we're looking at it, because I've been close to neons very often, but I've never, and I kind of know how they work, and I know how the connections go and all that kind of stuff. But to be actually, to see that it is an artisanal thing, but then they go to this incredible scale, and then the process, it involves so much volition and so much imaginary force and so much craftswomanship, hopefully sometimes. It can't be replaced, I don't think. I think that it'll possibly take, as perhaps the museum will help, it'll take it actually elevates itself by being rare. And it is rare because it's a gas, basically. It's a gas inside a tube. So maybe we're all a gas inside a tube. I feel like a piece of neon. I'm just a gas inside a tube.